I'm Amy, sex educator, sex and relationship coach, and co-owner of PurePleasureShop.com.
I'm April, VP of the cutting-edge sex toy company Hot Octopus, and I dedicate my life to the business of sex.
We are on a mission to teach you how to have hot sex, deep intimacy, and how to make your own rules for who you are as a sexual being.
Welcome to the Shameless Sex Revolution. Want to learn more? Go to shamelesssex.com.
And for 15% off of some of our favorite sex toys, use code SHAMELESSSEX at PurePleasureShop.com.
You were listening to a Pleasure Podcast. For more from our sex podcast collective, visit pleasurepodcasts.com.
Well, hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome to the Shameless Sex Podcast. This episode is with Damona Hoffman. We are talking about dating tips and how to find your future partner. So whether you are single and you just want to have casual dating, get to know some people or have some good times, or maybe you're looking for the one or the many ones, multiple partners, single partner, I don't know.
The one.
There will be tips for you, and we'll talk about online dating, in-person dating. As we are recording this, it is the COVID times. So I know in-person dating has changed as well as meeting people in person, but we'll still talk about that because this is an evergreen product. And I'm so curious what Damona has to say about the current state of dating, what she predicts that dating will be like in the future.
Do you think it's easier to date now? Not COVID times, but in general, just because of social media and
sliding into
apps?
DMs?
Yeah. Do you think it's a little easier?
I think there's more access, but it depends how you define easier, right? Is easier because you can just do it from home and reach out to people? And is that what makes it easier? Yes and no.
Yeah.
Because I think that that's also more disconnected to a certain degree. It makes it so we can access more people and screen people and like, the X, Y, and Z. But also that might get in our way of just screening people based on, the color of their eyes or some word they said in their profile. And you're like, no. Instead of in person, if you actually met them and you felt their energy, you might be into them. So
I'd struggle with dating apps just because I rely so heavily on energy.
You've never been on one. We got to get you on one.
And people's voices
see what that's
too.
like.
People's voices if they are not in line with if I kind of cringe or something.
I say we got to get you on one because you lived vicariously through me when I was on one when you were married and you were having so much fun. You were like, oh my God, it's a match.
It's a match.
It was like a video game.
It's like a game.
Yeah, it's a video game, especially when you're married. Like, this is cool. And you're like, I'm getting hit on. Okay, so we have a sex question. We will read the bio. But first, I'm going to give a testimonial. It's actually more feedback from a listener, advice that I liked. I had never heard of someone using this before. So we've talked about bacterial vaginosis or BV on our show a number of times. By the way, it's with doctors or listeners. And April and I have both experienced it. It's really annoying. And this is some feedback from a listener. So the listener says, I wanted to throw out the recommendation my midwives gave me when I started feeling yeasty, smelly, or when vaginal balance just seemed off, which is to use tea tree oil suppositories. You guys spoke about boric acid, which I totally used back in the day, but OMG, the tea tree suppositories are now my go-to anytime things don't feel great. I put them in before bed, wake up the next morning smelling herbal and usually feeling great. The brand I use is called Tea Tree Therapy, and I get them at my local health food store. Thank you so much for being part of the transformation around healthy sex. Woo!
Excuse me, Amy, I have to go and buy this right now. I'm on my phone.
Do you have some BV right now?
Well, I feel like
I get it
easily, and it just anything can throw off a pH sometimes. So
sensitive.
I think the older I've been, the more I
more sensitive.
Yeah, the more sensitive I am, and the more often I have the stuff. And the boric acid does freak me out because of the
word acid.
No, of the whole am I going to kill someone if they go down on me after putting a boric acid?
Definitely don't let them go down on you right after.
Yes.
All right. Sometimes I put in boric acid before, and I'm like, what if I accidentally swallowed this? 'Cause sometimes I'll do that with things. Like I'll use probiotics
Have you
vaginally.
Swallowed one before?
No.
Oh,
yeah, no. It's dangerous. But sometimes I'll take a probiotic to put in vaginally, and I'll just accidentally put it in my mouth instead. So boric acid, if suppositories, I'm like, I'm holding like, do not put in your mouth.
I have it in a whole different section of my, not near my vitamins or anything.
It's even in a different section for me. It's just my brain. I'm still worried about my brain doing the wrong thing. You kind of like if I put my hand in the garbage disposal, I still feel like the other hand's going to turn it on.
Oh my God. I know, right?
I don't trust myself.
I don't either.
Anyways, thank you for the information. Super helpful. I love all, anything and everything that we can get, especially when it's El Natural. That's really nice. I want to also do a little shout out. We've talked about this on our podcast before, but wanted to give a little shout out to She's Birdie. It's a cute little keychain that makes a crazy sound to protect you. It's an alarm and it flashes lights. I forgot what the hertz,
130 decibels.
Oh, decibels. That's the word I want to say. It is quite loud. We've tested it and I would do it right now, but it would probably hurt your ears. We've done it in front of April's dog. He definitely jumped up and ran in the other room.
I feel like just for where I live right now, it's dark.
Yeah.
And just having that on my keychain, I feel so much safer because it has that light that flashes too.
And the sound is loud. If you're walking in a quiet neighborhood with that thing and you pulled it, is louder. It sounds louder than like a lot of car alarms to me too.
Totally.
So, and I can't back that up because I haven't tested the car alarms and their decibels. But if you want this cute little keychain, it's great to give to gifts to a human in your life that you want to maybe have a little more protection. Go to shesbirdie.com/shameless. That's SHESBIRDIE.com/shameless. And you get 15% off. Go do it now.
Are you ready for a sex question?
I love sex questions.
Me too. This is a good one. My amazing husband has gained 60 pounds 3 kids later, and I am finding his weight gain to be a major turnoff and am now avoiding sex altogether. How do I tell him his weight gain is a major turnoff without hurting his feelings? BTW, I have encouraged him to eat better / stop drinking / exercise as motivation to be healthier for the kids to no avail. Please help.
That is a great question and a tricky one too, because first thing I'll say is when you say, how do I not hurt his feelings? You might not be able to control all of that. We can control how we say things, but feelings can get hurt, right? Or people can feel disappointed or sad. So my first tip is don't take on all of the other person's experience. In fact, I don't feel like we should ever do that with anyone, whether it's our children or our parents or our loved ones. And get more comfortable with the fact that sometimes we have to have difficult conversations that could bring up something for someone. And you have something you want to add to that before go ahead.
Well, it's just a tricky thing when you're talking about bodies.
Yeah.
And so I think the best thing to do, in my opinion, would be, hey, you want to meal prep together, or you want to kind of organize it and make it fun so it doesn't feel heavy or shamey.
But you're still not talking about it. So that's because they're dropping the hints, and I get it. Sometimes we can drop hints and that'll work, but sometimes they don't. And we're not asking for what we want or being more clear. And again, this isn't really about what you want. Yeah, I want my husband to have this banging body. That's not really what you're saying, right? I mean, of course you want to be attracted to them. And some people might feel a little trigger about this, whether you have been in this position on either side, and we're not body shaming at all. And actually, Damona Hoffman's going to talk a little bit more about preference and racial bias, which will be a whole different conversation. And so, just coming back to this idea of preference, we're turned on by what we're turned on by, and attracted to whoever or whatever we're attracted to. And there's probably some room for more acceptance here and there, and not always. And so I agree with you, April. Try dropping the hints. You already did. It's not working. I also agree with you, April, the we thing. Instead of you do this, make it a we thing. But I would still kind of speak to it a little bit. So how about we, for the next 2 months, 4 days a week, we go for... we get 45 minutes after we go, you share it together. Let's go do more exercise things together. Let's try this, I'm not a big fan of diet, but taking out refined sugars or, switching things up. Again, this is not our area of expertise, but make it an us thing to share together and not just you. And like April said, that'll make it more fun. And I would also say that there are loving ways to speak to something along these lines, something that is preference. And first of all, I would say this is a really uncomfortable conversation to have. I'm really scared to say this. I don't want to hurt your feelings. I love you. And then start with the wonderful things. Here's what I do find wonderful and sexy, and April's going to call this a shit sandwich. But, don't just drop here's the terrible shit. I'm scared to say this. This is hard. I love you. I don't want to hurt you. Here's what's wonderful here. And here's what I've noticed, and there's something in me that's shifting a little bit. I still love you, and I'm wondering if this is something that we can share and work on together and be prepared for their feelings to be hurt and to, hold some space for that as well. But I don't know, because unless you're going to just get over this all of a sudden, it seems like it's something that to lovingly address.
Well, it's also can be a health matter.
Yeah, there you go.
And they have 3 kids, and I'm sure with 3 kids, depending on the age, it's hard when you have to manage children, and if they have different kinds of dietary needs, where you're sucking down chicken nuggets every day
and drinking
and all of that. And in reality, 60 pounds is a lot it could be really unhealthy for your body, for your organs. Yeah. So you could also take the health approach to it. And I know that you will risk hurting his feelings. Yeah. And at the same time, you want to keep him around longer for your kids.
Yeah, the health thing I think is also a really important thing. And here's another way you sell it. He's going to feel better when he starts to exercise and eat healthier just in general, which helps everything in your life.
Which you feel sexier.
Yeah, and not just looking in the mirror feeling better, like internally feeling better. That's usually what happens.
When I gained weight when I was married, I gained probably, I don't know, around 40 pounds, I think. And it was due to poor diet. I was traveling all the time, working all the time, drinking all the time. And it just came on. And I felt so unattractive myself. And I was always in my head when I would be in an experience with my former partner. I was never on top anymore. I would just be like, I just want this to be over with. I don't want him to look at me. And it was really challenging. And then I had to make a conscious decision for myself just to feel better about myself and feeling better about knowing that I could probably live longer too if I stopped eating so poorly.
Did he ever say anything to you about it?
Yes, he was. He kind of said some not so nice things, like calling me a potato and things.
Oh, geez.
Yes, so that was hard.
Yeah, don't do that. Yeah,
no, don't do that. So, and I was already self-conscious.
I love you, so cute, like a potato. You're like not sexy.
No. So it was. He called it a potata because English was his second language.
Yeah.
Aww. That could be nice. Now
you're kind of like a little tater tot.
So I feel perhaps your husband isn't feeling sexy either, or maybe he is. Maybe he loves it. So that's a good time to start the conversation.
Yeah, and there's a difference between body shaming or there's a difference between that and actually just speaking to attraction and to health. They can be different things.
Yeah.
Okay, before we read the bio about Damona's awesome. Super excited to have her on the show. She's done a lot. She has a TV and radio personality too, so lots to learn here. She is an expert, so stay tuned. And before we dive into that, I want to share one more thing that we've talked about on our show many, many times that we absolutely love, and I can't wait till season 3 comes out. Woo!
Are you going to talk about masturbation?
I'm going to talk about baiting. But I'm going to talk about self-pleasuring with omgyes.com. And if you go to omgyes.com/shameless, you get a special deal, and let me tell you what it is. So it's an online program, completely research-based. How many people, April?
20,000.
20,000.
Vulva owners of all ages between the ages of 18 to 90. I think this oldest is in 95.
Awesome. And so they did this research with these people. They asked, how do you like to pleasure yourself? How do you have your orgasms? And season 1 is all about external pleasure. Season 2 is internal pleasure. And then they have these tasteful videos, so it's not porn. And they show you these techniques. And they're in these little categories so you can try them out, whether you're having awesome orgasms, you want to have even more awesome orgasms, or maybe orgasm's hard for you, maybe you just want some new techniques, or maybe you want to learn how to pleasure a vulva. They have tools and tricks for you to learn, and we're visual learners. Reading a book, a little more challenging.
And
it's so well done.
Visual portals, yes. You can learn about what hinting is, or shallowing, or broadening, or G regions.
Ooh, and then there's more seasons coming out soon. And so if you go to omgs.com/shameless, you get $5 off each season. And they buy them individually, and there will be more. And soon, I think they're going to do some stuff for penis owners.
Pay
too.
once, and then you'll have access.
You watch it over and over and over again.
Forever.
Forever.
All right. So, are you ready for a bio?
Yes, please.
Damona Hoffman is a certified dating coach, radio host, and TV personality. Damona starred in the TV series Black Love and A Question of Love on FYI TV and A&E Networks. She hosts the Dates and Mates with Damona Hoffman Radio Show and podcast. Plus, she is the love expert for BET.com. Damona has made hundreds of media appearances on NBC, Fox, Animal Planet, SiriusXM, People Magazine, and more. To learn more, visit DamonaHoffman.com. That's DAMONA Hoffman.com. All right, it's interview time.
All right, everyone, it is interview time, and we are here with Damona Hoffman, who is a dating and relationship expert. So whether you're single, whether you're in a relationship, whether you're looking for the one or the many ones, there will be some information here for you on how to navigate this wild world. You already heard a little bit about Damona in our bio and our intro, but Damona, welcome to our show, and I'm just going to dive right into the first question that we ask all of our guests. What can you tell us about how you got to where you are today in the field of dating and relationships?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Second of all, I have no idea, quite by accident. But what I can tell you is that I started out in the same place as many of my clients and probably many of your listeners. I was frustrated with dating. I felt like I wasn't meeting any of the right kind of people. I was actually working at the time as a casting director. And at night, I was teaching classes for actors in marketing and how to have headshots that would stand out to someone like me, a casting director, for the kind of roles that they would be right for. And at the same time, I was online dating, and I started to realize that the things I would tell an actor about what they needed to do to get noticed by someone like me and the things I needed to do with my profile photo to get noticed by the kind of guys that I wanted to meet, it was basically the same thing. So once I did that sort of marketing hack to my dating profile that I would tell actors, I ended up meeting the guy who is still my husband today. And that's now, it's been 17 years. And since that time, so many people came to me and they're like, well, how'd you meet that guy? And I just started doing that same process to polishing profiles. And from that, it turned into an entire career, becoming a life coach, then getting certified specifically as a dating coach to shepherd people through the entire process of finding love.
That is a beautiful story. 17 years going strong. And I think that I was just talking to Amy about this a little while ago, because I was like, do you think it's easier to date now than it was 10 or 15 or 17 years ago? Or is it harder? Because I don't know. I hear so many horror stories about dating, and then we throw in COVID, which obviously hopefully will end at some point soon. So that brings me to my question for you. What do you think the current state of dating is in the U.S. specifically, especially during these times?
Well, the very current state of dating is confusing. I'll say that. I'll give you that. I like to stay optimistic, but I will say I have seen a lot of weirdness is the best way I can describe it. And being a coach for as long as I have, I started coaching just a few years after I met my husband. So I've been in this game for a minute. I have been doing dating profiles. I've been helping people online and offline. And this has been definitely the weirdest time. There have been two major disruptors, I would say, in the dating landscape in the last 15 years I've been doing this. The first one was Tinder. That completely changed the game, because even though I was one of those nerds that was into online dating and I was like, this is my secret treasure trove of men, a lot of other people didn't embrace it and looked at it as a weird way to meet. And Tinder made dating apps accessible to everyone. But the flip side of that is Tinder made dating apps accessible to everyone. And so you had people coming to dating apps now for a wide range of reasons, which is good because it brings with it opportunity, but is challenging because it requires now a different sort of process to be able to filter people to make sure that they're there for the same reasons that you are. And the other disruptor, of course, is COVID. And while I used to be able to predictably say, if you do X, Y, and Z, 90% of my clients prior to the pandemic, 90% of my one-on-one clients ended up in a relationship within 3 months of doing my program and actually following the steps. The other 10% are the people that didn't follow the steps. And now I can't really say that. I have had successes. I have had clients get married. I have had a lot of clients move into serious relationships and even move in with partners. But I have also seen a lot of crazy, erratic behavior where I'm just like, I don't know what that dude's going to do. It doesn't make sense to me.
It's just everything's off.
Time, right?
Yeah.
Like I feel that in my own life. Like I have my family being like, when are you going to come to visit? And I'm like, I don't know. I really don't know. I can't think ahead more than like 6 weeks. So I don't know how you plan your future when you don't even know if you're going to be able to leave your house next month. Mm-hmm. But I also have seen how rapidly the situation changes. So I'm always encouraging my Dates and Mates podcast listeners to stay in the game, because you never know. You might miss that person. And if you're just like, well, it's not going to happen for me during COVID, and you just step out of the game entirely, you could be missing your chance.
That was one thing that when April and I were talking about that earlier, when she asked me that question, I was like, well, the nice thing about, and I do have a question for you about online dating. The nice thing about online dating is you can really screen out people. You have easy access. You just be at home and you can screen out the people that might not be a good fit for you. But I think people are quick to judge. They're like, oh, wrong color eyes, or they use this terminology in their bio, and I'm not into that. And in fact, if we were in person with them and we felt their energy, it might be a little different. Then you add COVID to that, and well, it's a little more challenging. So we'll get to the in-person question about how to do in-person dating when that's available. But what about for successful online dating? Our listeners love tips. So if you have some like top tips to share for them that they can maybe apply now.
I love tips too. And I also love utilizing the profile as your calling card. That is the thing that's that's the honey. That's going to bring in the bees, right? And you have to make sure you cannot just create a profile. People will be like, I tried online dating, it didn't work. And I'll ask them, well, let me see your profile. And how many messages are you sending? And how are you interacting and using the app? And they're like, oh, I thought I just like picked a couple of Facebook pictures and created a profile. And they just Prince Charming would just send me a DM or something. And it's not how it works. That is not how it works. You actually have to create a thoughtful, mindful profile that celebrates the things that you bring to the table and that would attract the right kind of person to you. So here's the time where everybody can get out their pen and paper and make notes. The 3 C's are my core philosophy on your dating profile photos. You have to have 3 things: color, context, and character. Color, it's psychological. I do this from a strategic point of view, and I think from the perspective of the person searching and sorting. If you are swiping through a bunch of photos and people are wearing all little black dresses and you can't even, they're in group shots, you can't really tell which one they are, you might pass on by somebody who would otherwise be great. But if that person has color in their photo, particularly red, men are biologically attracted to the color red. Women, it's not as clear that the particular color is a signifier, but if you see color, you're more likely to stop and go further into the profile. And that's where we want to have the second C, the context. What are you saying about yourself through your profile? Then the third one is the character. What is your personality? What's the quirky side? What's the sexy side? What's the funny side that would make someone say, this isn't just a pretty photo. This is actually somebody that I feel like I could connect with.
That's good. Those are some good tips. I've never used a dating app before, but I kind of vicariously live through some of the folks in my life that do. And I always get really intrigued when I look at photos that they're swiping through and there's like no head on some of them. And the person just has their body, like their body next to a car. And it's confusing to me because I guess they're not even shirtless. They're like in clothing. And I'm like, why wouldn't they put their head in there? That's important. And so I also agree with you totally. When people have group shots, it gets really confusing. It's like, are you saying that you have a lot of friends, or are you saying like what? So do you recommend again kind of having some of those shots, or just doing mostly solo and capturing you as a solo human?
You are the star of your profile. This is your time to shine, and maybe your only time to just really say, look at me, and not worry about who else is in your lifestyle, is in your life. Like people think that it means, oh, look how popular I am. I go out, I hang with friends. I'm cool. I'm fun. Don't you want to hang out with me? But actually, it risks two things. It risks them not knowing who you are. And also, I hate to say it, but they then start to compare. And what if they're more attracted to the friend next to you? It's just not a good strategy. So I like for my clients to be the sole person in the photo. You got to be careful. You can crop some photos. And I actually am a big fan of cropping to direct the eye to the place you want them to see. And that's a strategy I used to use with actors when I would do their headshots. Because sometimes you might get a different impression of somebody if it's a 3/4 shot versus if it's more of a headshot. So you have to kind of have the balance of headshots and at least one full body shot. But you also have to be mindful of all of the messaging, all of the information that's in your photo. And if you crop off, it's like somebody's arm that's there. Sometimes people don't even bother cropping and you're like, who is that chick? But if there's like this phantom arm there that's like conspicuously cut off, that could actually be worse for you than just picking another photo.
Cropping could be your fourth C, Damona, in
Ooh,
this, right?
There you go.
The fourth C.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you are revolutionizing my strategy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you're
The
so
C's keep
right.
growing.
The C's
But
grow.
see, people get confused though when I talk about cropping or when I talk about photo editing. There's a lot of confusion because people think that means that you can edit how you look, and that's not at all what I'm saying. Like filters, no. And a lot of the apps now are also they're eliminating filters. Like on Bumble, you can't get a filter approved in your photo today because they have facial recognition technology. It's so deep. It's so deep. I don't want to bore everybody with all the nerdy online dating facts that are in my head, but you want to have it actually look like you, because the goal for most people is to actually meet offline and form some form of a relationship. And if you don't look like your photo, I've seen so many catfish profiles, because I'll also search for my VIP clients. I can notice right away, like if their photos don't look crisp and digital clear, because now the expectation is you have a high quality digital camera in your pocket right now. Mm-hmm. So if you don't have a clear and clean photo of yourself, it's either too old or it's not you.
Yeah.
So I'll look for those things. I'll look for if they have group shots, but then there's photos that don't all look like they fit together and you can't really tell what they look like. That could be another sign. If they have pictures of themselves in a uniform, whether it's an army uniform, military uniform, that's a really common catfish technique. And also like a doctor coat. So there are ways that there are definitely ways that you can enhance your profile to make people fall for it, but ultimately you want to look like you look, and you want to be who you say you're going to be if you want to get to the next state.
Yeah.
That is excellent advice.
Fishing cracks me up.
I know. I'm loving this. It was a thing. I like the fact that a lot of dating profiles aren't allowing filters anymore, because the over filtered photos out there, they're a little. Now right, when you look at something, and they're just a little, I think, outdated. Like, just be real.
And we're not saying that we don't ever filter ourselves, by the way. If you look at our Instagram, we'll have some filters there. But I like what you're saying, Damona, too. If your intention is to meet them in person, why not show the real you? They're going to see it. So that seems like it just kind of makes more sense.
Yeah. And you raise a really good point. Your Instagram is not the same as your dating profile. And I think a lot of people confuse the two. Like the Instagram identity that you have, even though there are apps that allow you to link your Instagram, which I don't really recommend because I think it's too much information. The Instagram life is one thing, but the dating app is really where I believe you should have sort of a curated collection of your life story, because you have to remember this is their first interaction with you. And like if you were at a cocktail party, like imagine we can go to a cocktail party in future world, or imagine what it was like when you could go to a cocktail party. You probably wouldn't say certain things to a person you just met for the first time. You would let that kind of unfold over time. But somehow now with dating apps, I feel like there's a trend towards like, let me just put it all out there, and he's either going to love me or she's either going to fall for it or not, but then I'll just know and we'll be able to shortcut it. Like this element of time, that's been the biggest thing that's changed since I started as a dating coach. Like the speed of dating has increased, and therefore also the concern over wasting time on dating apps has also increased. And there are definite things you can do to conserve your time and make sure that the people you're investing in are really aligned with what you want.
Which I think that that's a perfect time to switch gears and talk about not online dating, but for when things get back to normal, air quotes normal, or the new normal, what are the best ways for folks to meet people in person?
Oh, well, okay, wait. New normal.
wait, what is that? Yeah.
If it ever
See,
will.
I'm like, I can't plan for like 6 weeks out. I don't know. I can tell you what it is right now, and I can tell you what I think it will be.
Yeah.
Right now, I have all of my clients and my Dates and Mates listeners do a COVID dating safety plan. What are you comfortable with right now? And this is a constantly evolving document, right? As long as we're still getting new information about the virus, about what the mask mandates are in our state, for example. The current landscape is you need to know what you'd be comfortable with. Would you go out to dinner with a person indoors? Would you take off masks at all? When would you go to this person's house? When would you kiss this person? Are you going to have the conversation about, are they dating someone else? Are you exclusive before you kiss this person? Because what if you kiss this person and they're kissing other people? And could those other people have COVID? I know it's complicated. I know it's a lot to think about, but I guarantee you, if you think about it now, like when you're in fantasy mode and you write it down and commit to it, you're going to be less stressed than in the moment when you might do something. And I would do this with my clients too, about sex as well. Like, what are you comfortable with? If you write it down now and you commit to it in your mind, when you're faced in the moment with something that you're not entirely comfortable with, you already have decided how you would behave in that situation, and it's easier for you to make a choice that's in alignment with your values. So fast forwarding to the future, what's dating going to look like? I think as more people will be vaccinated, and I'm not just guessing on this, there is information like out of Wuhan, who is well ahead of the United States in where they are in the handling of the virus. In Wuhan, as they declared themselves finally COVID free, essentially, people went buck wild. Like, people were out partying, making out, hanging out, karaokeing, locking lips with strangers, like the pressure, and they weren't even locked down as long as we've been. The pressure was released. So I think that is what is coming for us. I actually saw some interesting information from OkCupid, which is an app that I actually work with them. And they predicted that, I think it was August 4th in the UK, was going to be the hottest dating day of the year, because of when Boris Johnson said that the vaccines would all be distributed, and they kind of calculated a couple of weeks out from that, and they're like, that's when things are going to go crazy.
Like a modern day
I think
baby
that's
boom.
what's coming for our summer.
Yeah.
Oh
It'll
yeah,
be
we're
like
going to
a
have baby
COVID boom.
Oh.
COVID baby boom.
COVID baby boom and sexy boom. I actually was saying this too to someone about what. So we live in Santa Cruz, California. April and I are now in our later half of our 30s, and I remember being here when I was 21, and like the bar scene was busy on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And now, I mean, not that I go now, not that I even went like 3 years ago. it's just it was already changed before COVID, and I was like, I think people are going to be so hungry for contact and flirting and meeting people that they're going to be out. And that's great that you actually already know what's happening in other places that have more safety around that. And one other thing that I wanted to say about that before I ask you another question here too is I used to say this, something I said, maybe you can say what you think about this in terms of meeting people in person. I used to say, where do you shop for your groceries? Where you shop for groceries might actually represent people that you might be interested in. Like if you're into healthy organic food, there might be some more healthy organic people there, or like the grocery store next to your gym, or
farmer's market,
or maybe you shop at Target, or whatever. But there's like, that might be a good place to be like scoping some people out. I've definitely have spotted some babes in the Whole Foods and places like that, especially when I've traveled too. So do you have, this would be my kind of 2-part question here. Do you have, just assuming, or I guess what was your tip maybe even before COVID? Someone's like, how do I meet people in person? What are the kind of places they should be going to meet people? And then adding on to that, when in person is safe, again, air quotes, adding on to that, what are some good tips for hitting on someone? Like, what do they say? What do they do?
Well, the grocery store fantasy is alive and well. I actually, a couple of years ago, got some data from Match on this. And a lot of people had that fantasy, like, we're going to lock eyes over the bananas in the produce section. I don't know why I said bananas, but you can imagine. And it actually is one of the least common places to meet. Of course, online dating is the biggest game in town, and Match's data this year showed that 40% of people, well, last year showed that 40% of people had their last first date from someone they met online. But the other places doesn't mean that all the dates are happening there, even though that's the number one place. You should go to a place where the kind of people you want to meet are there and the competition for you is low. So if I were a straight heterosexual female, I might go to maybe not a sports bar because guys are there to watch the game, but I might go join a softball team or a kickball team or co-ed soccer league. I might do an activity where the gender dynamics would be in my favor, right? Or if I were a straight cisgender male, I might go to a yoga class where I could talk to somebody about their beautiful practice afterwards. I like your strategy about going to Whole Foods because they're likely to be, health-minded people there. The trouble with meeting in an open environment like that is that you don't know that person's status. You don't know, like, if they're married or not. You cannot count on them wearing a ring these days. We have, things have shifted around that. So you have to just be mindful of the fact that they might not be available versus when you go to, say, a dating app or probably a bar or club where you know that those people are probably looking to make some connections. You wanted to get lines too, like pickup lines.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Boy, I mean, our pickup lines a thing?
Do you have a needle and thread? Because I'm ripped
and I'm gone. I'm like, bye.
Yeah, bye.
See you later, April.
So I actually don't believe in pickup lines, but I believe in connecting with people, and I teach my clients actually using the principles of improv to begin conversations. And improv, not because I'm like, you should be funny, because it teaches you how to listen and be in the moment and react to the environment. So there's usually something in the environment that you can react to, or something on their person that you can react to. And I tell them to lead with a curiosity comment. So it could be like your Whole Foods comment would be a curiosity comment. Like, have you ever used this kind of organic, whatever the product is? And then you're jump started into the conversation. Or it could be like, oh, wow, I really like that tattoo or that piercing, or
like my
that
cucumber.
Nice melons.
Nice melons. Oh, I'm sorry. I meant the other.
No, sorry. No. I get what you're saying. There. Yeah. Let's go back to
curiosity.
We're being our little bros right now. Sorry. Sometimes
so that's just it. Like, don't overthink it. I think a lot of people get stuck in inaction because they're like, I don't have the perfect line. And they miss the opportunity because they don't know what to say. I actually do have a client who met offline, even in the midst of the pandemic. She was wearing a mask. She went to a store that he owned. They started talking about a topic that the stuff that he was selling, it was already stuff that she was interested in, and it was something he obviously was interested in because it was his store. And the next thing they knew, they were locking eyes, and the next thing they knew, they were locking lips. Ooh. So not in the store that day, but much later down the road. But, it just began with a conversation where they were curious about the same things and could read the vibe and go from there.
Okay, time for a quick break. This podcast was made possible by Uberlube. It's a luxurious silicone lubricant that enhances sex and intimacy. We receive emails from listeners who have tried Uberlube, and the feedback is unanimous. We never knew lube could be this good. It's also less likely to throw off the pH than most other lubes, and there are thousands of doctors recommending Uberlube to their patients, whether they want to make their hot sex even hotter or for folks experiencing dryness.
Uberlube is without a doubt my favorite lube. It has no flavor, no scent, and feels absolutely amazing on my body. And it isn't just for sex. I use it to tame my hair frizzies, to prevent chafing, and I even put some in my mouth before an oral sex session. Totally ups my blowjob game. Oh, and the bottle, it's beautiful. It looks like a cosmetic product, so I just leave it out on my nightstand, totally shamelessly. To learn why we think it's the best lube on the planet, check out uberlube.com and use code SHAMELESSSEX for 10% off, plus free shipping. Again, that's uberlube.com and use code SHAMELESSSEX for 10% off and free shipping. This podcast was also made possible by Sakara. You all know how important pleasure is to us, and pleasure isn't only about sexy time. The food you eat can give you so much pleasure too. That's why we love Sakara. Sakara focuses on overall wellness, and their chef-crafted, organic, ready-to-eat meals are made with powerful, plant-based ingredients, so you can have better digestion, more energy, and a healthy glow. I never get bored with their menus because they have a new one each week, and I get to eat meals like penne alla vodka and margarita flatbread with macadamia ricotta, and I actually feel good afterwards.
You had me at vodka margarita. Along with delicious plant-rich meals, Sakara also offers daily wellness essentials like supplements and herbal teas to support your nutrition. Experience the transformative power of plants with their best-selling Metabolism Super Powder made with organic raw cacao to boost energy, eliminate bloating, minimize sugar cravings, and reduce fatigue. And right now, Sakara is offering our listeners 20% off their first order when they go to sakara.com/shameless or enter code shameless at checkout. That's Sakara, SAKARA.com/shameless to get 20% off your first order. Sakara.com/shameless. Go get that glow. And now back to the show.
So I'm wondering, Damona, in terms of, I'm not sure exactly if it's going to differentiate between finding, if your advice for finding someone long-term would be different than the advice that you're giving before. So, because I feel like dating, I don't know, not everyone might be looking for long-term partners, but for those folks out there who are looking for long-term partners, do you have advice on how to navigate the dating world if you have this intention?
Yes, I do. It's a similar process, but I'm a really big fan of stating your business early on. If you're looking for a long-term relationship, don't be afraid to say that. So many times people will ask me how to gauge someone's interest in a long-term relationship and how to indicate it without ever having to be vulnerable or saying that they're actually interested in a long-term relationship, because they're afraid that he might run away if she says that she wants marriage and kids. And my feeling is that, look, you're either when you get quote rejected, which I don't even look at it as rejection. It's a rejection of the situation that you're offering. It's not necessarily a rejection of you. And if you are interested in a serious relationship and that person is interested in a serious relationship and you could be it, they will gladly gladly embrace you. So I tell my clients that if you get, quote, rejected, you're either being spared or prepared. You're either spared the drama of chasing somebody, investing in somebody, and getting your head caught up in this idea that this person is going to be something that they're not, or going to want something later that they don't want right now, or you're being prepared for something that is more in alignment with what you want down the road. And I had this experience myself. I was in this like 4-year on again, off again, mostly off again, confusing, frustrating situationship/relationship. And I finally said to the guy, I was like, I gotta know, like, what's going on? I wish I had the foresight to be able to ask that question maybe 2 years earlier. I would have saved myself like 2 years of drama. But he finally was just like, nah, like I can't do it. And that really freed me up. I ended up meeting my husband like 4 months after that. And I wasn't necessarily looking to get married, but I was like, I need a little bit more of a commitment from that. And I think having that clarity and knowing that I needed to state that before 4 years had gone by saved me a lot of drama and ended me up in the relationship that I ultimately wanted to be in and stay in for the rest of my life.
I love that you said that about rejection. I think I remember Charlie Glickman. I think I was the first one I heard him say that, and I've actually said that to people too. That they're not rejecting you because they don't even know you, right? If like you go up and talk to them and they're like, actually, I'm not interested. You're like, oh my God, they know everything about me and they hate me. And they don't know everything about you. They don't know who you authentically and genuinely are. They're just declining. I think what he said was they're declining an opportunity that you presented that they're no to, and that's just a part of it. But I love what you said about the spared or prepared. I think that is gold.
And the situationship.
Yeah.
I love that too.
Totally. Yeah.
I'm still mad about those 4 years. But you know, like I think everything happens for a reason. And, you know, maybe if the timing was different, then I wouldn't have been available for the person that I'm with today. So you never know. And I've seen that happen to so many of my clients too, that were just like trying to make a square peg fit. And it just, the frustration level. And then when they let that go and they're like, okay, this isn't in alignment. This person's not rejecting me. They're rejecting this opportunity to build a life with me because it's not what they want. Then that's when I've seen really beautiful, amazing things happen to people's lives, and quickly too. Like sometimes 3 months later, then they end up meeting somebody that wants exactly the life that they want, instead of trying to force a fit with somebody that wants something different.
Yeah, there is something so big about alignment. And then when you clear, we only have a limited amount of energy to share with the world. And so when we clear space, we have so much more spaciousness to letting something or someone else in. And I've definitely experienced that on my end in my life as well in many ways. Switching gears a little bit here. So you speak on the topic of, is it dating preference or racial bias? And I want to comment this one. I think it's an important question to ask or to understand, especially even I'll speak for myself. I'd like to know more about this. Also, we had a listener that sent us some feedback about a recent episode that we had that was a little bit on this topic. So I'm going to read you what the listener says, and then maybe we can chat a little bit about this. So, on a recent episode, your guest was talking about how every penis has a perfect match to fit into. He later went into his own personal beliefs that some ethnicities and cultures feel better to him than others. Ethnicity and culture are not chosen but born into. In my mind, he is not giving people a chance based on their ethnicity stemming from his past experiences. Imagine saying that you only like certain ethnicities or cultures in any other context. So my question is your thoughts on this, and then also how it may or may not link to the question, is it dating preference or racial bias?
I wonder if your listener had read the article I wrote on this, because I wrote this article last year after the death of George Floyd about how we sometimes hide our racial bias behind other things, and in the context of the work I do, behind dating preferences. So I wrote this in the Washington Post. I write for a column there called Date Lab, and my editor was like, I need your voice in this conversation. And it was interesting, the response to it, because a lot of people were feeling hella triggered by it. And I understand that. I understand that. And as a person of color, I get that a lot of these concepts that I have been thinking about my entire life, and not just a person of color. I come from a biracial background. I also, like, in my extended family, my stepmother is a different race. My sister-in-law is another race. So I have the entire UN representation in my family tree. So that's the lens that I've always looked at the world through. But I understand if it's new to you, it feels like something that you automatically have to push back against. And like, even that was something, like, I watched the Meghan and Harry interview with Oprah with pen and paper in hand, and seeing just the way that people have reacted. Like, we have to take sides on whether it's racial bias or not, that Meghan was treated different than Kate, that Archie is not getting the title of prince, that, Harry himself is saying that he has experienced racial bias in his family. That's not a debate. That is a factual statement. The question is, what do we do about it? So it is not up for debate whether you saying you have a racial preference is a racial bias or not. By definition, if you state you have a preference, you have a bias towards or against a particular race. I'm not interested in debating that or pointing fingers at anybody for that. I recognize that even as a person of color, yes, of course, I have certain biases and beliefs that I bring to the table. What I'm really interested in, and what people seem to be triggered by when I wrote this Washington Post article, is the why. Why does that exist? And for most of us, it's not our fault. This is the world that we are brought into. The question is, what do you do when you have the information? Now that you are aware, oh, that is an example of racial bias, you can step back and say, is that actually in alignment with who I am and what I believe? And am I perpetuating systems that I have been born into and accepted as truth for my entire life? Am I choosing to perpetuate this by continuing to repeat that I don't know, this culture vagina feels different than that culture vagina? Because of course that is not factual. There is no scientific basis for that statement. That is based on your experiences that you have interpreted to add up to a particular meaning. So that's the information. The question is, what do you want to do with it?
Mm-hmm. I think that's really, really valuable, and for a number of reasons. One is, I think we were talking a lot about race and social justice. A lot of the conversations are like, stop pretending like this isn't a thing, or that you don't feel this, or you don't start looking at yourself and not just taking accountability, but hiding behind the lens that I'm the good. The good. I'm not going to. By the way, our listeners, we get a lot of challenging feedback sometimes when we go down this route. So, and so for listeners, if you're listening, just bear with me here. That we're just talking about really more so embracing this and that. And what you're saying here is, let's not hide behind, oh, it's just dating preference. Like, there is a racial bias here. And then also this other piece of, when we put ourselves in categories and little boxes, thinking like, this is the type of person I'm into and that's it, or the type of sex I'm into and that's it. We're labeling and limiting ourselves, when really there's all kinds of wonderful people out there that could be of all kinds of cultures and races that might be really aligned with you, and you've just limited yourself from meeting them because you told yourself a story based on past experiences. But maybe that's what you need to do. And the same thing happens also with sex. This example I use here often is, I don't like tickling. I don't want someone to make out with my armpit. It sounds terrible. Why would I ever want that? And then someone did it, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to hate this. And then I loved it. And I know they're very different, but it's the ways that our brain works, and we put ourselves in these boxes. One, to take on a label, maybe to prevent ourselves from looking like a bad person, and then two, to keep ourselves safe, because it's a story we've told about who we are, when really we're constantly evolving, and the brain works in mysterious ways. And I think it can be really, really limiting and also harmful for other people or for ourselves. It just depends on how, like you said, I like that. I like the way you said that. What I'm interested in is more so, what do we do with this in
the why,
as opposed to like this, this just is
very thought provoking.
Yeah. I think it's really helpful.
Yeah. I really like your angle on that. And I think it does apply in the bedroom and in other dating preferences as well. And this has always been a part of my dating strategy. I know it sounds unsexy when I say strategy. I really do look
Not to
at
me.
it.
I like strategy.
I love strategy.
Okay. I like doing that with my clients because most people don't look at their dating life in a strategic way. It's much more by like happenstance. And I think interesting things happen when you look at it more strategically and ask yourself, why does he have to be a certain height or a certain size or a certain make a certain amount of money? Like, what is the story, to borrow your word? What is the story that I'm telling myself about that? And for all of us, and there is research around this, like the things that we know are comfortable, they're familiar to us. So we gravitate towards them because of our confirmation bias. Our brain is biased to continue to stick with the things we are comfortable with. So even in your tickling example, that was something that was unknown, maybe a little scary, maybe a little off-putting because it wasn't something you had explored, maybe something you hadn't explored with the person with whom you felt safe. And that's the thing that I'm trying to get people to strip away is why did you form that belief system? And if you step back and look at it from an unbiased perspective, is it fact or is it a story? And is it in alignment ultimately with the life that you're trying to build? And I've had clients who, I was working with an Indian woman who said to her, she wanted to only focus on dating Indian guys. And so we did this whole process of, I explained it in the Washington Post article, the 5 whys, which is actually a business technique, but we start to unpack that. Well, why is that important to you? And then every response is followed up with another why until you really get to the root of your decision making. And she came to the conclusion that her relationship with her father was really the most important relationship in her life, as she could see it from this particular vantage point. And the times when she had dated somebody outside of her race and culture, her father was very upset and it was detrimental for their relationship. And that was not the life that she wanted. And I'm not going to be like, well, you got to date some white guys, just because I believe in being open. I'm going to say, okay, that's not the life that you're trying to build. You want to build a life with someone of your same culture so that you can include your father in this process. And to her, that was the most important. But if you don't ask the questions, you're never going to get to the answer.
Mm-hmm. Wow. This was, you have so much quality information and insight, and you are incredible. Thank you for all of this. I know that folks that are out there dating or folks that need some thought-provoking questions on why they feel or think certain ways. This is some insight. I know that you are a busy human as well. I know you have a radio show, a podcast. You're all over the interweb. And will you let folks out there know how they can find you and all of your work?
Yes, I am all over the interwebs. Of course, I'm on all the socials at my name, Damona Hoffman. And I do the Dates and Mates podcast every week. We just celebrated 350 episodes of doing that show every dang week for it seems like my entire life. But I love it. I love helping people navigate. This stuff it's dense. It's tricky. It's triggering. It's compelling. And I just really love to have the opportunity to help people, one, find love, because I think that is the most important decision you will ever make, who you choose to to spend your time with and ultimately potentially blend your life with, that's a really important decision. So I love helping people navigate through that every week on Dates and Mates. And I have lots of resources to continue to help people on that journey at datesandmates.com.
Love. I love the name too, Dates and Mates, because it's kind of perfect for everyone, right? Whether you're, because dating can go along with friends too. Finding friends can be difficult. It's
sometimes
like
more challenging than
totally
mates. Yeah,
so I love it. I love everything you're doing, Damona. Thank you for sharing. Go check her out. Thank you. And to all of our listeners out there, I can't leave a podcast without talking about Margins Wine. We just drank the Sangiovese a few nights ago, Amy and I together, and it was incredible. She only does 2 releases every year. So go ahead, get on the mailing list at marginswine.com and be in the know. Why not? And to all of you beautiful listeners out there, we love you. We'll see you next Tuesday. Ciao for now. Want to learn more? Go to shamelesssex.com.
And for 15% off of some of our favorite sex toys, use code SHAMELESSSEX at purepleasureshop.com.